Welcome to After Hours. I'm Vaughn. Every night at 8, we go somewhere together. Somewhere most people wouldn't dare. 10 nights. 10 nights since Amara Okafor heard a signal that nobody else was supposed to hear. 10 nights since she opened a door that powerful people spent billions keeping shut. And tonight is different from anything that came before. Because tonight, Amara isn't running. She isn't hiding. She isn't cracking a cipher, or infiltrating a conference, or dodging bullets on the Bosphorus. Tonight, she's going to sit across from a man who helped destroy her family. And she's going to ask him for help. If you're new here, go back to episode 1, The Frequency. This is a story that builds on itself, and every detail you've heard matters tonight. If you've been here since the beginning, I want you to know this is the episode I've been waiting to tell you about. Subscribe, share this with someone, leave a comment. Because what happens tonight changes the shape of this entire story. This is The Signal. Episode 10, The Witness. Previously on The Signal, Istanbul. Amara walked into a defense conference with a polymer patch on her palm and walked out with the biometric key to Viktor Petrov's operational database. The first of 3 cipher keys needed to unlock everything Nexus has buried. The escape cost her a bullet graze on her left arm. Simon Cross was there. 40 meters from catching her on the Bosphorus docks, she made it across the water by the width of a prayer. Then she went dark. Completely dark. Destroyed every device. Burned every identity. At 4 in the morning, Amara Okafor became a ghost. Yuki built an underground route, 18 days, 3 cargo ships, 2 overland segments, 0 airports, 0 facial recognition. Istanbul to Mersin, to Algiers, to Dakar, to Recife, to São Paulo. We went inside Nexus for the first time. Eleanor Vance, CEO, philanthropist, architect of 147 disappearances, mobilized every resource she had. She ordered the Singapore archives scattered across dark facilities around the world. She told Cross to end this. And for 18 days, Amara crossed the Mediterranean and the Atlantic on cargo ships, with no phone, no connection, no way to know if the world she left behind was still standing. Tonight, she arrives. Tonight, she meets the witness. São Paulo, I need you to understand what this city is, because if you haven't been there, you don't know. You think you know. You've seen pictures. You've heard the numbers. But São Paulo isn't a number. It's a feeling. It's the feeling of standing at the edge of something that has no edge. 22 million people. The largest city in the southern hemisphere. The largest city in the western hemisphere. A city that sprawls in every direction until the horizon gives up trying to contain it. Skyscrapers stacked next to favelas, stacked next to shopping malls, stacked next to churches, stacked next to highways that coil around each other like concrete serpents. The air hits you first. If you've been on a cargo ship for 2 weeks breathing salt and diesel, the air of São Paulo is something else entirely. Humid, heavy, carrying the smell of exhaust and street food, and rain on hot concrete, and a million lives being lived on top of each other. And the noise. Lagos is loud. London is loud. Istanbul is loud. But São Paulo is a different kind of loud. It's the sound of a city that never decided to become this big. It just kept growing, layer on layer, decade on decade, until it became something that isn't quite a city anymore. It's an organism, a living thing that breathes and sweats and roars. Amara stepped off a bus at the Tirat terminal on a Tuesday afternoon, 26 days since Istanbul. 18 days since she last spoke to another human being who knew her real name. She was wearing clothes she'd bought in Recife with cash. A light cotton shirt, dark trousers, a canvas bag over her shoulder. Her left arm had healed. The bullet graze was now a pink scar, slightly raised, a permanent reminder of the Bosphorus docks, a souvenir from Simon Cross that she'd carry for the rest of her life.
The bus terminal is enormous. Hundreds of people moving in every direction. Announcements in Portuguese I can barely follow. Signs I can half read because they look almost like Spanish, but not quite. Everything is close and hot and loud. 18 days of silence. 3 cargo ships. 2 buses. And now I'm standing in a city of 22 million people, with a bag, a fake passport, 400 reais in cash, and an address written on a piece of paper I memorized and destroyed a week ago. Rua das Flores, 34. Second floor. Heliopolis.
She didn't have a phone. She didn't have a map. She had the name of a neighborhood, a street, and a number, and the knowledge that somewhere in this impossible city, a man named Marcus Webb was hiding. A man who'd been inside Nexus. A man who'd walked away from the machine and spent 2 years trying to disappear. She found a newsstand, bought a paper city map, the kind tourists buy, the kind nobody uses anymore because everyone has a phone. She unfolded it on a bench, traced the route with her finger. Heliopolis was in the south of the city, one of the largest favela communities in São Paulo. Over 200,000 people in an area smaller than most London boroughs.
I need to get to Heliopolis. No taxi. Too many cameras. Too many records. Bus. I need to find the right bus. I ask a woman selling magazines at the newsstand. She speaks to me in rapid Portuguese. I catch maybe 1 word in 5. I point at the map. She laughs, not unkindly, and points me to a bus stop. Number 5175.
The bus ride took an hour and 40 minutes through traffic that doesn't move so much as breathe. Lurching forward, stopping, lurching again. Amara sat by the window, watching São Paulo unfold. Glass towers giving way to mid-rise apartments, giving way to commercial strips, giving way to residential blocks where the paint is peeling and the power lines hang low across the street like black vines. And then gradually, the transition. The buildings get smaller, the streets get narrower, the city doesn't end, it transforms. The planned grid dissolves into something organic, something that grew without permission. The edge of Heliopolis, where the formal city meets the informal one, where the concrete apartment blocks of the middle class stand 10 meters from the stacked, improvised homes of the favela, where a glass office building catches the afternoon sun on one side of the street, and a tangle of electrical wires and satellite dishes and corrugated roofing occupies the other. This is where Marcus Webb chose to hide. Not in the wealthy neighborhoods of Jardins or Pinheiros, where a foreigner might blend in at a cafe, not in a beach town where the living is easy. Here, in the densest, most complex, most alive part of one of the most complex cities on earth. Because this is a place where people don't ask questions, where community is tight, and outsiders are noticed, and the police rarely come, and the people who live here protect their own. A perfect place to disappear, if you can earn the right to be there. Now, finding someone in a favela when you don't speak the language and you don't know the neighborhood, and you have no phone and no contacts, that's not an investigation. That's an act of faith. Amara got off the bus at the edge of Heliopolis and walked in.
The streets narrow immediately. Some are paved, some aren't. The buildings are close together. 2, 3, 4 stories, built upward because there's no room to build outward. Exposed brick. Rebar poking out of concrete rooftops, left there for the next floor that might come someday. Laundry hanging between windows. Music from somewhere. Samba, funk. A football match on a TV turned up loud. Children running past me. A dog sleeping in the shade of a parked motorcycle. A woman carrying a basin of fruit on her head, walking with a grace that makes me feel clumsy and obvious and very, very foreign. Everyone can see I don't belong here. I'm not Brazilian. I'm not from this neighborhood. I'm a stranger walking with purpose in a place where strangers with purpose make people nervous.
She found a small shop, a mercearia, on a corner. A woman behind the counter, 50s, strong arms, watching a small television mounted on the wall. Amara bought a bottle of water and a packet of biscuits. And then she tried.
Excuse me, I'm looking for a friend. An American man. He lives near here. Rua das Flores.
She spoke slowly, mixing English and the handful of Portuguese phrases she'd memorized on the cargo ship. She'd had 18 days with nothing to do but stare at the ocean and study a Portuguese phrase book she'd found in the ship's common room.
Americano. Homem. Rua das Flores.
The woman looked at her. Not hostile. Not helpful. The look of someone who has learned that answering questions about other people's business is rarely a good idea. The woman shrugged, said something in Portuguese that Amara didn't catch, pointed vaguely up the hill.
I try a bar. 3 men sitting outside with small glasses of something golden. I describe Webb as best I can. American. Late 40s, tall, thin. Lives alone. Been here about 2 years. One of the men laughs. Says something to his friends. They all look at me. Not threatening. Amused. A foreign woman asking about a foreign man. In Heliopolis. That's entertainment.
She walked. Up narrow stairs cut into a hillside. Through alleys where the buildings press so close that the sky becomes a ribbon of blue overhead. Past a church. Pentecostal. Music pouring from the open doors. Past a barber shop where a man was cutting hair with an electric razor and a cigarette between his lips.
At a fruit stand near the top of the hill, I try again. A woman in her 30s. 2 children pulling at her skirt. I describe Webb. She listens. Something changes in her face. She recognizes the description. She doesn't say a name, she says a word. Phantasma. Ghost. Phantasma?
The fruit seller nodded, pointed down an alley to the left, held up 2 fingers. 2nd floor.
I say, obrigada. She nods, watches me walk away, and I can feel her eyes on my back the entire way down that alley. She's deciding whether to warn him, whether I'm trouble.
In a place like Heliopolis, the community is the security system. Better than cameras. Better than alarms. Amara had maybe 10 minutes before word spread that a foreign woman was asking about the ghost on Rua das Flores. Rua das Flores, 34, a concrete building. 3 stories. Unpainted. A metal door at street level that didn't lock properly. The latch was bent. A narrow staircase with no railing. Exposed wiring running along the walls. The smell of cooking oil and damp concrete and something floral. Jasmine, maybe, from a plant growing in a cracked pot on the landing. 2nd floor. A single door. 3 locks. 3 different locks. A deadbolt, a padlock through a hasp, and a chain. All of them heavy duty. The kind of locks that say, whoever lives here isn't worried about petty theft. They're worried about something else entirely.
Nobody answers when I knock. I wait 30 seconds. Knock again. Nothing. I look at the locks. Deadbolt is a Brazilian-made Pardo. The padlock is an American master lock. He brought it with him or ordered it. The chain is standard. GCHQ didn't teach me lockpicking. That was a workshop at a conference in Cheltenham, run by a retired intelligence officer who thought every analyst should understand physical security. I spent a weekend with a practice set. I was decent. Not fast, but decent. The padlock takes me 4 minutes. The deadbolt takes 8. The chain I can't pick, but there's enough slack to reach in and slide it.
She pushed the door open, and what she found inside told her everything she needed to know about Marcus Webb before she ever met him. A single room, maybe 15 feet by 20. A mattress on the floor. No frame, just a mattress and a thin blanket and a pillow with no case. A small kitchen area in the corner. A hot plate, a sink, a few plates and cups. A plastic table with 1 chair. Newspapers. Stacks of them. Brazilian papers. American papers, weeks old. The kind you find at international newsstands in the city center. Some cut up. Articles circled in red pen. Names underlined. A web of string on one wall connecting photographs and clippings like something from a detective film. Except this wasn't fiction. This was a man trying to keep track of the people who wanted him dead. The windows were covered. Not curtained. Covered. Aluminium foil taped over the glass on the inside. No light in, no light out. A small mirror, the kind you'd find in a woman's handbag, was fixed to the wall beside the door at an angle, positioned so that anyone inside could see the hallway without opening the door. Empty bottles. Cachaça, the cheap kind. The kind that comes in plastic bottles. A dozen of them in a cardboard box by the kitchen. Not hoarding, just the evidence of a man who drinks alone and doesn't bother cleaning up because nobody is coming over. Nobody has come over in 2 years.
This is what Nexus does to people. Not just the ones they disappear. The ones who got away. The ones who ran. They're still trapped. Still in a prison. The prison is just inside their own head. There's a photograph taped to the wall above the mattress. A woman and 2 children. Young. Smiling. A backyard somewhere American. Virginia maybe, or Maryland. A life that used to exist. He'll come back. Wherever he is, whatever he's doing, he'll come back. Because this room is all he has. So I sit in the chair, by the table. And I wait.
Amara sat in Marcus Webb's apartment for 3 hours. She didn't touch his things. She didn't go through his papers or read his notes. She sat, and she waited, and she listened to the sounds of the favela through the foil-covered windows. Music and voices and motorcycles and the distant thump of construction somewhere. She thought about Emeka. She thought about what she was going to say to a man she'd never met, in a room she'd broken into, in a city she didn't know. She thought about the micro SD card in her bag that held Victor Petrov's palm geometry. She thought about the fact that somewhere in the world, Simon Cross was hunting for her. And she waited. 6:47 p.m. The light through the foil has gone amber, then gray, then dark. The sound of footsteps on the stairs. Heavy. Deliberate. A man who counts the steps because he knows exactly how many there are, and any deviation means someone else is on the staircase. Keys in the first lock. Then the second. A pause. A long pause. Webb noticed the padlock. It was locked again. Amara had relatched it from inside. But the scratch marks on the shackle. A man who checks his locks every single time would see them. Fresh scratches that weren't there this morning. The door opened fast. Not the way a normal person opens a door. From the side, pressed against the wall, one hand reaching in, the other hand holding something.
The door swings open. I can't see him. He's behind the door. The hallway light throws a rectangle of yellow onto the floor. My shadow is in it. He can see that someone is sitting in his chair.
Don't move. Hands where I can see them. Both of them. Now.
His voice is American. Low. Tight. The voice of a man who is not bluffing. My hands are up.
Who sent you?
Nobody sent me. My name is...
I didn't ask your name. I asked who sent you. Vance? Cross? Are you a contractor?
He came around the door, and Amara saw him for the first time. Marcus Webb. Late 40s, but looking older. A face that had once been handsome. Strong jaw, sharp cheekbones. Now gaunt, the skin pulled tight over bone. Unshaven. Dark circles under eyes that were moving constantly. Checking the room, checking the window, checking the hallway behind him. He was wearing a faded t-shirt and cargo pants and sandals. And he was holding a Taurus revolver pointed at Amara's chest.
I'm not from Nexus. I'm not a contractor.
That's what a contractor would say. How did you find this address?
A friend gave it to me. Someone who believes you want to bring them down as much as I do.
I don't have friends. Not anymore. Try again.
I came here on 3 cargo ships. 18 days. No phone. No digital trail. Istanbul to Mersin to Algiers to Dakar to Recife to here. If I were Nexus, do you think I'd come by cargo ship?
They've done worse to sell a cover story. I've written those cover stories. Sit still.
He checked the hallway, closed the door, re-engaged all 3 locks without taking his eyes off Amara. Then he crossed to the window, peeled back the corner of the foil, and looked down at the street for a full 30 seconds.
There's a woman at the fruit stand watching this building. She one of yours?
She told me where to find you. The neighborhood calls you Phantasma, the ghost.
What do you want?
I want to bring down Nexus. I want to expose what they did, what they're doing. And I need your help.
Lady, I can't even help myself. Look around. Does this look like a man who can help anyone?
It looks like a man who's been waiting for someone to ask.
The gun didn't lower. Not yet. Webb stood across the room, his back against the wall, the revolver steady. 2 years of hiding had not made him careless. If anything, it had made him sharper. Paranoia is a whetstone. It hones every instinct until the world is nothing but threat assessment and exit routes.
My name is Amara Okafor. I'm a cybersecurity analyst. I used to work at GCHQ. And I had a brother. His name was Emeka.
The room changed. Not visibly. Nothing moved. But the air between them shifted, the gun in Webb's hand. It didn't drop, but something behind his eyes did. A wall, cracking, an old wound, reopened.
Say that name again.
Emeka. Emeka Okafor. He was a journalist. He was investigating Nexus. And he disappeared in February of 2023.
Jesus Christ.
The gun lowered. Slowly. Webb's hand dropped to his side. He looked at Amara. Really looked at her. And what she saw on his face was not surprise. It was something worse. It was recognition. Not of her face. Of a debt he'd been carrying for longer than she knew.
You're Emeka's sister.
You know the name. How do you know the name?
I didn't just know the name. I was his case officer. I was the one who filed the surveillance report on Emeka Okafor. I was the one who classified him as a level 3 information threat. And that classification, that report with my signature on it, is what triggered the resolution protocol. Your brother disappeared because of a report I wrote.
Stop. I need you to sit with that for a moment. Amara Okafor has spent months, since episode 1, hunting the people responsible for her brother's death. She's crossed continents. She's been shot. She's destroyed her identity 4 times over. She's traveled 18 days on cargo ships across 2 oceans to reach this room. And the man standing in front of her, the man she needs, the man Yuki sent her to, the man who holds testimony and evidence that could bring down the entire machine, is not just a witness. He's part of the chain that killed Emeka. That's not a plot twist. That's a grenade rolling across the floor between 2 people who need each other. The conversation that followed lasted 4 hours. Amara told me later that it was the hardest thing she'd ever done. Not infiltrating a defense conference. Not going dark for 18 days. Sitting in a room with the man who helped kill her brother and choosing, deliberately, painfully, to listen instead of scream.
I want to hit him. I want to pick up one of those empty bottles and throw it at his head. I want to ask him how he sleeps at night. I want to know if he thinks about Emeka. If he thinks about any of them. But I can't. Because he's the only person alive who was inside that machine and walked away with proof. If I lose him, I lose everything. So I sit. And I say, tell me, from the beginning. All of it.
I joined Nexus in 2019. Recruited out of the CIA. I'd been with the agency for 14 years. Case officer, mostly Middle East and Africa desk. Burned out. Divorced. The usual story. Private sector came calling and the money was 3 times what Langley was paying.
What did they tell you?
Corporate intelligence, risk assessment, due diligence for multinational clients. It sounded clean. It sounded like what every ex-agency guy does. You take what you learned at the government's expense and you sell it to the private sector for a better salary and no more Senate oversight hearings. The first year was exactly what they promised. Background checks, security audits, competitive intelligence, legal stuff mostly. Finding out what a client's competitors were doing. Mapping political risks in unstable regions. Standard corporate espionage dressed up in consultant language.
When did it change?
It didn't change all at once. That's how they do it. It's gradual, a little more access, a little more responsibility, briefings that are a little more classified. And one day you're sitting in a room and someone uses the phrase managed departure, and you understand, not because they told you, but because you've been trained your whole career to read between lines. You understand that they're talking about making a person disappear.
And you stayed.
I stayed. Don't look at me like that. You think I didn't know? I knew. But I told myself the stories we all tell. National security, greater good. These people were threats. Real threats. Terrorists, traffickers, the kind of people the law can't touch because the law doesn't reach that far. That's what I told myself for the first 6 operations. And then operation number 7 was a union organizer in Honduras who was inconveniencing a mining company that had a contract with one of our clients. And I read that file and I knew it had never been about national security.
How many?
Me personally? I was the case officer on 31 operations over 3 years, 31 surveillance reports, 31 threat assessments, 31 recommendations that went up the chain to people who made decisions I was never supposed to see.
But you saw them.
I saw enough. I saw the resolution orders come back. I saw the logistics, the cleanup teams, the way a person's name would appear in one database, and then weeks later, it would be gone. Not deleted, scrubbed, like they'd never existed.
Webb got up, walked to the kitchen, poured 2 glasses of cachaça from a plastic bottle, set one in front of Amara. She didn't touch it. He drank his in one go and poured another.
Tell me about the euphemisms.
You've heard some. Managed departure, that's forced disappearance. Quiet option, that's elimination. Lethal. Resolution, that's the umbrella term. Could mean anything from a managed departure to a quiet option to a, quote, reallocation, which is when they move someone to a black site and keep them alive for interrogation purposes.
Reallocation. They keep people alive.
Some of them. The ones who have information they need, or the ones whose deaths would attract too much attention. It's cheaper to hold someone in a facility in a country with no functioning press than to stage a convincing death.
Is that what happened to Emeka?
I don't know. I filed the report. I classified him as level 3. That's an information threat with active capability to publish. Once the report goes up, I don't see what comes back. That's compartmentalization. That's how they keep people like me in the dark. You write the report. Someone else makes the decision. Someone else executes it. Nobody sees the whole picture.
But you saw the whole picture eventually. That's why you ran.
I saw enough of it to know I couldn't sleep anymore.
This is what Nexus does. It builds walls between the people who do the work. No one person sees the complete chain from identification to resolution. The analyst writes the report. The committee reviews the recommendation. The logistics team plans the operation. The field team executes. And at the top, at the very top, someone signs off. One signature. One decision. But Webb started pulling threads. Because that's what happens when you can't sleep. You start looking, you start counting, you start putting names to numbers.
31 operations. I went back through every one. Off the books. On my personal laptop, encrypted, disconnected from any Nexus network. I pulled the files I had access to. I copied financial records. I photographed internal communications. And I started cross-referencing. That's when I found the consortium.
The consortium. We've heard this word before. Episode 5. The broker. Rue mentioned it in Zurich. A coalition of clients. A group of powerful people who use Nexus as their enforcement arm. But what Webb found was something Amara never expected. Something that changes everything.
What is the consortium?
It's not a client list. That's what I thought at first. A group of powerful clients who contracted Nexus for services. It's a board. 12 permanent members. They sit above Vance. Above Nexus itself. Nexus is the tool. The consortium is the hand that wields it.
12 people.
12. Fixed seats. When one dies or retires, the remaining 11 vote on a replacement. They've been operating for at least 15 years. Maybe longer. That's as far back as the records I've found go. They meet 4 times a year. Rotating locations. Never the same city twice in a row. And at those meetings, they review targets. They review intelligence. And they vote.
They vote on who disappears.
Majority rules. 7 out of 12. That's all it takes. 7 votes, and a name goes from a file to a resolution order. 7 people raise their hand, and someone's brother doesn't come home.
Who are they?
I have 6 names confirmed. The other 6, I have partially. Titles, roles, enough to narrow it down, but not enough to publish. The 6 I know. A sitting head of state in Central Asia. A tech billionaire. You'd know the name. Everyone would. It's on a building in San Francisco. A media conglomerate CEO who controls newspapers and television stations in 14 countries. An oil executive, one of the top 5 producers in the Middle East. A retired NATO intelligence chief. And a shipping magnate who controls 40% of container traffic through Southeast Asia.
You're telling me that elected officials, tech executives, media moguls, these people sit on a board that votes to make journalists and activists disappear,
That's exactly what I'm telling you. And I'm telling you because I had the same reaction. I sat in a hotel room in Singapore, and I read those names, and I thought, this can't be real. This is too big. Nobody would believe this, and that's the point. That's the whole design. Make it so big, so absurd, so unbelievable that nobody takes it seriously. Because who's going to believe that 12 of the most powerful people on Earth have a private committee that decides who lives and who dies?
People will believe evidence.
People will try to bury evidence. People will discredit it. People will kill for it. Which is why I've been living in a concrete room in a São Paulo favela for 2 years instead of going to the press.
He poured another drink. His third. The bottle was almost empty. Outside, the favela was coming alive with night sounds. Music from a house party somewhere close, the whine of motorcycles, voices calling to each other across rooftops.
Why didn't you go to the press?
Who? Name a newspaper. Name a television network. I'll tell you which one has a consortium member on the board. I'll tell you which editor killed a story about Nexus in 2021 because a phone call came from someone they couldn't refuse. The media isn't an option when one of the 12 controls the media.
What about intelligence agencies? Your old colleagues at the CIA.
The retired NATO intelligence chief, seat number 4 on the consortium. You think the agency doesn't know? You think the Western intelligence services haven't looked the other way because Nexus handles the problems they can't admit exist? Rendition was outsourced in the war on terror. This is the same model. Clean hands, private contractors, plausible deniability.
So there's no one.
There was no one. Until you knocked on my door.
You think you're going after a company? That's what Amara thought. That's what Yuki thought. Bring down Nexus. Expose the financials. Publish the names of the disappeared. A corporate scandal. Front page news for a week. Congressional hearings. Investigations. But that's not what this is.
You think you're going after a company. You're going after the 12 most powerful people on Earth. And they will burn entire countries to the ground before they let that list go public.
Good. Let them try.
2 a.m. The favela was quieter now. Not silent, never silent. But the music had stopped and the motorcycles had faded, and the voices were down to murmurs. A dog barked somewhere. A baby cried and was soothed. Webb stood up from the table. He'd been talking for 4 hours. His voice was raw. 3 glasses of cachaça and a pack of cigarettes he smoked down to the filters. His eyes were wet. Not crying, not quite, but the sheen of a man who had just spoken about things he'd carried alone for 2 years. He walked to the wall. The far wall, behind the mattress. He pushed the mattress aside with his foot, knelt down, pressed his thumb against a section of concrete near the baseboard. A piece of the wall shifted. A panel, perfectly fitted, invisible unless you knew it was there. The kind of construction that comes from CIA tradecraft training and 2 years of nothing to do but prepare.
A compartment, cut into the concrete, maybe 2 feet wide, 18 inches deep. And inside, everything Marcus Webb had been saving for a day he wasn't sure would come.
Let me tell you what was in that wall. 3 USB drives, each one encrypted, each one containing a different dataset. The first, internal Nexus communications spanning 4 years, emails, memos, operational orders, all copied from Nexus's own servers before Webb disappeared. The second, financial transfers, wire records, shell companies, the money trail from consortium members through a network of intermediaries to Nexus operational accounts. The third, personnel records, names, photographs, and assignments of 47 Nexus field operatives, the people who execute the quiet options. Manila folders, 4 of them. Photographs, surveillance photos, meeting photos, photos taken covertly at consortium meetings, locations, dates, faces of people whose names appear on magazine covers and world leader summits, passport photographs, 6 of them. Nexus operatives Webb had worked with directly. The kind of identification that can't be denied. A Taurus 9mm handgun, loaded, his backup weapon, and a leather journal, worn soft at the edges. The kind of journal a man writes in when he has no one to talk to. Every page filled with small, precise handwriting. Dates. names, operations, details that don't exist in any database because they lived only in Marcus Webb's memory until he put them on paper.
31 operations, everyone documented. Dates, locations, target names. Who gave the order, who carried it out, what I knew, what I suspected. And what I found out later when I started digging, he picked up the journal, held it for a moment, then held it out to Amara. This is my confession. Every sin I committed working for them. Every sin I witnessed. Every sin I can prove. I started writing it the day I arrived in this room. 2 years of writing.
I take the journal. It's heavier than it looks. Not physically, but the weight of what's inside. I open it to a random page. The handwriting is neat but tight. Like a man writing under pressure, even when no one is watching. A date. April 17, 2021. A name. Redacted, but with enough detail to identify. A location. Bogota. An operational summary. A resolution order number. And at the bottom of the page 3 words. She had children. I close the journal.
The USBs are copies. I have originals hidden somewhere else. Not here. Not in this city. If something happens to these, the data survives.
And you're willing to go on record?
I've been sitting in this room for 2 years waiting for someone to ask me that question. I left Nexus because I couldn't live with what I'd done. But leaving isn't enough. Hiding isn't enough. I have to testify. I have to say it out loud with my name on it where they can hear it. Otherwise, what was any of this for? The hiding? The nightmares? The empty bottles? If I just disappear and die in this room, they win. And I can't let them win.
Amara looked at the evidence spread across the floor of that concrete room. Webb's USBs, Webb's photographs, Webb's journal. Combined with the Petrov Palm data she carried, the biometric key to the operational database. This was the most dangerous collection of evidence on the planet. Not just dangerous to Nexus, dangerous to heads of state, to billionaires, to the 12 people who believed they were untouchable, and all of it in the hands of a burned cybersecurity analyst and a broken ex-spy in a favela in São Paulo, 6,000 miles away. London, Nexus Group headquarters, 10 a.m. Greenwich Mean Time. Eleanor Vance is standing at the window of her office. Floor 39. The Thames below, gray and slow. She's holding a tablet showing a map of South America with data overlays, shipping manifests, port records, immigration databases.
Simon, what have you found?
Cross's voice comes through a secure line. He's in transit. The background noise of a car, city traffic. He's been running reconstruction analysis on Amara's possible routes since the Istanbul safe house went cold. 23 days of silence. And then, 3 days ago, a thread. A cargo ship called the Meridian Star that departed Mersin the day after Amara went dark. A captain with a history of taking undocumented passengers. A port call in Algiers that connects to another vessel heading west.
South America.
Cross confirmed. The trail is thin, but consistent with someone who knows how to move without digital footprint. Cargo routes, cash payments, paper manifests.
Brazil?
Most likely. The third vessel in the chain terminates in Recife. From there, overland routes lead to São Paulo, Rio, or further south.
Webb.
One word. That's all Vance says. And it's enough. Because she knows exactly who is in São Paulo. She's known for 2 years. She left Webb alive because a dead ex-CIA officer attracts more attention than a living ghost in a favela. Killing him would have meant an investigation. Leaving him alone meant he was just another burned-out expat drinking himself to death in South America.
The Singapore archive transfer is complete. The data is fragmented across 7 facilities. Even if she decrypts the palm layer, the database is distributed now. Individual fragments are meaningless without the master index, which requires all 3 keys. But Webb has the originals. He has physical evidence. Financial records. Personnel files. Things that exist outside our digital architecture. Things that can't be fragmented or moved. Send a team to São Paulo. Priority extraction. I want Webb contained, and every piece of evidence in that apartment recovered or destroyed. You have 48 hours.
48 hours. That's how much time Amara and Webb have before Cross's team arrives. They don't know it yet, but the clock just started. 3 in the morning. The rooftop of Rua das Flores, 34. There's no railing, just a flat concrete roof with a few plastic chairs and a clothesline. The kind of rooftop that isn't designed for sitting. But people sit there anyway because in a favela, every horizontal surface becomes shared space. São Paulo at 3 in the morning is still lit. The glass towers of the financial district glow in the distance like a second skyline floating above the dark mass of the city. Closer, the favela is a patchwork of dim yellow windows and blue-white television screens, and the occasional sweep of a motorcycle headlight. It goes on forever. In every direction. A city without edges. Amara and Webb sat in plastic chairs on that rooftop. Between them, 2 glasses and a bottle of cachaça that had appeared from somewhere in Webb's kitchen. The evidence was locked back in the wall compartment downstairs. The journal was in Amara's bag. The guns, Webb's revolver and his backup, were back inside. Up here, for the first time, they were just 2 people.
Your brother, Emeka. Tell me about him.
You want to know about the man whose death you caused?
Yeah, I do.
He was 4 years older than me. He was brilliant. Not in the way people say it. Like, he scored well on tests. He was brilliant in the way that mattered. He saw things clearly. He looked at a situation, and he understood the shape of it before anyone else. He was funny. Genuinely funny. He could make anyone laugh. Our mother, our uncle, the woman at the post office. He had this gift for finding the absurd in everything. Even the serious things. Especially the serious things. He became a journalist because he believed words could change the world. I know how that sounds. Naive. Idealistic. But he wasn't naive. He was stubborn. He knew the world was broken, and he thought if he wrote the truth clearly enough, loudly enough times, someone would have to listen. He wrote about corporate corruption in West Africa, oil companies, mining companies, the way money flowed from multinational corporations to local officials and back again, the way communities were displaced, and resources were extracted, and nobody was held accountable. He won a prize for a series on illegal mining in the Niger Delta. A small prize. But he framed it, and put it on his wall. And then he started investigating Nexus. He found the pattern. People disappearing. Not randomly, systematically. Journalists. Activists. Lawyers. People who were inconvenient to powerful interests. He found the thread that connected them. And he pulled it.
I know. I read everything he wrote. Every article, every blog post, every interview. It was part of the assessment. When a target is flagged, you build a complete profile. You read their work. You study their patterns. You understand them. He was right about all of it. Every connection he drew, every accusation he made. He was right. And I read it all, and I wrote in my report that he was a level 3 information threat with active publishing capability and growing reach. That assessment went up the chain. And 6 weeks later, he was gone.
I found out he was missing on a Tuesday. I was at GCHQ. I got a call from our mother. She hadn't heard from him in 4 days. That wasn't unusual. Emeka would go quiet when he was working on a story. But she had a feeling. Mothers always do. I tried his phones. All of them. Dead. I tried his email. No response. I contacted his editor. His editor said he'd gone to meet a source and hadn't come back. I spent 3 months looking for him through official channels. Police. Government. Embassy. Interpol. Nothing. Nothing. Not a trace. Not a body. Not a ransom demand. Nothing. And then I found the signal. The encrypted frequency. And everything changed.
I want you to know something. It doesn't fix anything. It doesn't bring him back. But I want you to know that your brother's file was the one that broke me. He was the reason I started digging. He was the reason I copied those files. He was the reason I ran. I read his articles, and I saw a man who was doing exactly what I should have been doing, telling the truth. And I helped silence him. And I have to live with that. I've been living with that for 2 years.
You can't undo what happened to Amika. Nothing can undo it. Not your guilt, not your testimony, not any number of USBs hidden in a wall. But you can help make sure it means something. His death, his work, his name. You can help me make sure it doesn't just disappear like he did.
That's the only reason I'm still alive. I stayed in this room. I kept writing in that journal. I kept the evidence. Because I was waiting. I didn't know for who. But I was waiting for someone to walk through that door and tell me it was time to make it mean something. And then Amika's sister picks my lock and sits in my chair.
He would have laughed at that.
Yeah.
The absurdity. His sister, who used to be afraid of spiders, picking locks in a São Paulo favela at gunpoint. He would have laughed until he cried.
There's a silence that settles over that rooftop. Not the silence of tension. The silence of two people who have been through something together. Not the same thing. Not even close. But parallel tracks of the same catastrophe. And for the first time, they're sitting in the same place in the same moment, and they can hear each other. The city stretched out below them. Infinite. Indifferent. 22 million people sleeping and waking and living their lives, unaware that on a concrete rooftop in Heliopolis, two people were holding the evidence that could reshape the world. And then Webb said something that Amara didn't expect.
There's something else you need to know. About the 12. The consortium board.
What about them?
One of them. One of the 12. Is someone you've met.
What are you talking about?
In your investigation. Your journey. The people you've encountered, the people who've helped you or pointed you in the right direction. One of them sits on the consortium board.
That's not possible.
I've been tracking your progress. Not in real time. I don't have the tools for that. But Yuki's operations leave traces if you know where to look. And I've been looking for 3 months. Ever since word reached me that someone was pulling at the threads. One of the 12 knows exactly what you're doing. Knows where you've been. Knows what you found. And they have been watching. Waiting.
Who?
Not tonight. I'll tell you tomorrow. You need to understand the full scope first. What I'll show you tomorrow changes who you can trust. And once you know, you can't unknow it.
And there it is. One of the 12. Someone Amara has met. Someone she trusted. Someone who has been watching her tear apart the machine they helped build. Webb knows who it is. He's not ready to say. Or maybe he wants Amara to sleep. One more night before the world she's built. The alliances, the trust, the fragile network of people she depends on comes apart. Tomorrow. He'll tell her tomorrow. But Amara doesn't know what we know. She doesn't know that Cross has a team en route. She doesn't know that Vance said 48 hours. She doesn't know that every hour they spend on this rooftop is an hour closer to a door being kicked in. The clock is ticking, and the witness has more to say. So, where are we? Amara has the Petrov palm data, the first of 3 cipher keys. She now has Webb's USBs, 4 years of Nexus internal communications, financial records, and personnel files. She has Webb's journal 31 operations documented by the man who helped plan them. And she has Webb himself willing to testify, willing to go on record, willing to put his name on the confession that could bring the whole thing crashing down. But the Singapore archive has been scattered. The operational database that the Palm data was supposed to unlock is now fragmented across 7 dark facilities around the world. Even with the first key, the data is distributed. She still needs the retinal scan, the second key, and the security token, the third, to access the deep archive where Emeka's name lives alongside 22 others. Webb's physical evidence is devastating, but it needs the digital records to be complete. The testimony of one man, no matter how detailed, can be discredited. They'll call him a disgruntled ex-employee, a drunk, a conspiracy theorist. He needs the corroborating data that lives inside that cipher. Cross's team is 48 hours behind them, maybe less. The window is closing. And somewhere in Amara's past, in the people she's met, the hands she's shaken, the alliances she's formed, one of the 12 most powerful people on Earth has been watching. Now, I need to tell you something about what comes next, about this story, and about you. We're at the midpoint of the signal, 10 episodes in, 6 to go, and the road ahead has branches, choices, forks that change everything. Starting next week, you're going to have a voice in what happens, a vote, because this story doesn't belong to me anymore. It belongs to all of us. And the decisions Amara faces are decisions I want you to help make. More on that soon. But remember this moment, because the first choice is coming. Tomorrow night, episode 11, The Mirror. Webb reveals the full